if the president is unable to identify the interests that people are bringing into the office, then
Yeah.
that president is bound to fail in administration. There are certain portfolios that I still think I don't even know why people still run for those portfolios anymore. I feel like it's we can move past it. I don't want to call out portfolios, but some of them.
Call it, call it. Okay, hi everyone. It's been such a long time we did a Shaft Conversations episode. We ran out of people to be talking with. Today I've gone to catch one and I've brought them here. This will be an episode basically interviewing Kelly Smith Amankwa, who happened to be um, one of the presidents of the prestigious KNUST Debate Society, a long line of big men who I can't begin to compare myself to. So today I'm here. Mr. President, you're welcome to the Shaft Conversations.
Oh, thank you very much, Andrew, and it's a pleasure to be here. Let me first of all say I'm deeply honored to be on your prestigious show. Yeah, I think that I was looking at. I actually went to follow your podcast and I was looking at the
Yeah,
people who have come here. I'm like, hey, me too. Right now, they say I'm a big man. So yeah,
tell it. You've always been a big man.
this might be vibes.
Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, how has things been? It's been a while. Post school, post debate. You finished school now that you vanished from the system inside. We,
Oh, I'm
we could
not. I'm
only
not
see
vanished.
you, we could only see you leaving. We never saw you stop. So
Yeah,
many of
it's been 4 years, right?
yeah,
And I don't think sometimes I feel like wow, it doesn't feel like 4 years, but it's actually been
yeah,
4 years since I finished KNUST and then I left. Um, since leaving, well, I obviously I think like you would know, or some people around me at the time would know, my parents were not local. So when I finished, I had a discussion, like a long conversation about what to do with your future, and they said, well, you might as well come back here and then see what we can do from there.
yeah,
So I left in September during COVID. So just when the COVID restrictions were being lifted a bit, like
yeah,
around the September time, that I just quickly left. And I decided to further my education by taking on a master's in finance. And
yeah,
fortunately for me, immediately I finished my master's, I managed to secure a full-time role within a bank. And then I worked there for about 3 years, and I just recently joined another bank as well, working in
yeah.
asset services. So I think that has been my 4 year trajectory since leaving debate. But let me also say that, I've been looking at you like these past 4 years too, and then I must say you're doing very well. Like I'm actually proud of the way you've managed to keep yourself relevant in the space and also, touch on like other lives. Like I see you're training and you're flying here and there. I saw sometime you're even in England. I say, hey, they say they're calling what to 2 point. Yeah, so it's just amazing because
Yeah.
yeah,
You've been watching me beyond the way I'm watching you. Okay, now I see. No
yeah.
wonder you claim you have tabs.
But it's great because I think it took me back to 2018 when we went to Tanzania together, and I was
Yeah,
like, wow, like we've actually come very far. Like looking at, and I still have some of the pictures, So every
yeah.
now and then I chance on them. I look at them and I say, wow, it's been a great growth, like one that is worthy of celebration. So.
That's true actually, and I must say it's really nice to see like post school the growth, and you've taken some pretty big steps as well, steps that some of us are looking forward to taking. So we are watching and learning. Um, but but yeah, you mentioned that you went to do finance. I'm trying to ask when you were doing undergrad, and if anyone asked you if you were going to do finance post grad, would you have said yes?
Actually, yes. So those like people like who I talk to a lot in Arabla, if you ask them what does Kelly want to do, they'll say Kelly has always said he wants to be governor of Bank of Ghana. And so I always knew, right? And
Yeah,
me reading statistics in KNUST, it was not
yeah,
like an accident, it wasn't a mistake. So I,
yeah,
I didn't choose the degree because I didn't get business administration, and then that's why I ended up doing statistics. The reason might sound very funny. When I used to watch Hollywood movies, you would see in boardrooms people with graphs and all
yeah,
the
yeah,
charts.
yeah, yeah,
And when
yeah,
they were talking serious economy, that's the only thing I saw. So I
yeah.
decided to take a degree in statistics only because I thought where the world was moving towards, if I was going to be relevant in any financial conversation, I needed to understand how to read trends, how to calculate trends, how to see that kind of line of thinking. And
Yeah,
so I actually wanted to do economics and mathematics in University of Ghana.
yeah.
But once University of Ghana admission swerved me, I just KNUST gave me statistics. I was like, okay, cool. Because I think there was a degree called Economics, Math and Stats in University of Ghana. That's the one I was targeting the whole time. But then I
Okay.
decided to do a 4 year statistics, and then so I always wanted to go into finance. That was I
Yes.
didn't have to think much about it. It was the next step for me.
Yeah, interesting. So this conversation would be quite a blend of talking to you about so many different things. Some of them would become topical later on. But I'm going to start by asking you two random questions. So I have 6 cards here. I'm
Okay.
just going to pick 2 questions at every turn that I feel like asking you. And I'll just ask you, they are just random questions from people. So the first question is, if you could go back in time and change one specific moment in your life, what would that be and why?
Hmm. See, that's a very difficult question because I like to think I have no regrets. but um, but if I could go back in time and
Yeah,
change one thing, which moments would that be and why? I think if I'm thinking about the significant moments in my life and which
yeah,
ones would have taken me on a different path. I think one thing that I know for sure I would have to correct was my time in KNUST politics. I think it gave me so many lessons. And if I'm to go back today with all that I know, there are
yeah,
certainly some friends I want to make, two, some things I'll never get myself involved in, and three, some things I'll never take in the name of student
yeah.
politics or student interest. So I think yeah, I'll definitely change a lot about that time. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. The next one is, when it all gets too dark, what helps
Mhm.
you find the light?
Reminding myself of why I started. So um, it's gotten dark along the way, but you always need to ask yourself, why are you doing this in the first place? Why did you even start? And if you
Yeah,
remember why you started, if you remember why you are doing what you are doing, then you can move on. I think there's this thing they call, I think it's called anchoring effect or something like that. I've forgotten
yeah,
the exact term, but it's when you always look back to a particular focal point and use that as your to drag you forward. So for me, I always look at my achievements in the past, what I did, what those things meant to people, and just
yeah.
remind myself of why I'm doing this and just keep going.
That's pretty interesting. It's also interesting because the two answers to your questions, I'm combining them to ask you the next one,
Right.
which is that you mentioned that your time in student politics in KNUST is a time that you'd go back and change some things. And you also mentioned that when things get too dark, you remind yourself of why you started. So my first question to you actually is, why did you start student politics in KNUST?
Yeah, I just sort of read your mind there. So I mentioned at the start that I always wanted to be governor Bank of Ghana.
Yeah,
Right. So when I came into the university, my focus was I wanted to understand how the Ghanaian political system worked. I wanted to understand what it means to be part of a group and work towards putting somebody in office. Because even
yeah,
though I know that office is not an electable office, not one that you campaign to be in, but you need to know
yeah,
enough men in office to appoint you to get there. So I was
yeah.
always interested in how those things work. So right from first year, I got myself plugged into the next campaign. And
Okay.
even though I wasn't a major player in the campaign, I was just sending messages here and there, talking to some of the people. But in my second year, I walked up to Kelvin Saab and I said, well, I heard you want to be SRC president. I think I can help you. And we had a
Yeah,
long conversation. And then I said, this is where I think I can help you best. I can write, I can speak. I think I have very good ideas. We can implement them. And I wasn't doing all of that to gain, like, there are various reasons I got to learn later on that
yeah,
these are the reasons why people came into the space. But for me, it was more I was on an exploration. I wanted to just explore and see where it took me, how distant. So it was more about the the ideas behind it. I was just being more ideological, I guess, than
Yeah.
trying to understand what it really meant for some people and what was motivating them. So it gets to the point where and I became an integral part of the campaign without even realizing I was. So there was a
Yeah.
moment where literally the whole campaign was hinging on what is Kelly saying we should go and say today, and I was like, oh, I've become that important. So yeah, and it helped me bargain my way to becoming like his chief of staff because I think it was the most natural progression for me. Like you help him in the campaign so much, you might as well be
Yeah.
useful when it comes to running the administration, which obviously came with its own different issues that one I never anticipated, only because
Yeah.
of that reason I just gave, which was I went into it with the mindset of learning for myself, but not
Yeah.
necessarily to get my hands too dirty. But I realized that at some point you start making enemies out of who didn't even know you, who had never spoken to you
Yeah.
before, people who didn't even know like what you did or who you were, and then just like tagging you here and there because of certain affiliations that you had. So yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. The role of chief of staff, really, like there's always this you think about movies and series and the way in which they describe and portray the role of the chief of staff. With your experience, and maybe not just in KNUST SRC as well, but maybe what you know from interacting with other people, is it really how it is portrayed in the movies as such importance in terms of more like that person is probably even more important in running the administration than the vice president is? Is that how it plays out in real life?
Yeah, it can, and it all depends on how the administration is structured and who is the president. And I
Okay.
say this because every president is different. Every president comes into office with a very different mindset. The way Canadian politics is done is such that it depends on who is also running. The vice president could also be a whole different force on his or her
Yeah.
own. So if you come into the administration, you need to understand what is going on. But to answer your question, to an extent, it can be like how it is played in the movies because you become responsible for all the other departments or offices under the constitution, and they need
Okay.
to run their schedule through you. The president is giving you his schedule and saying, "Today I have a meeting here. I have this board meeting at administration. I can't be there. Can you represent me? I know where he's going to be when he's
Okay.
going to be there." But also, because he's the president, to
Yeah.
a large extent, he gets to decide how much he allows you to handle and how much he doesn't allow you to
Oh,
handle. So it all
okay.
depends on the kind of president and relationship you sort of build with that person before you come into office. That's why most chief of staffs that you find would have run the campaign with the president or would have run the
Yeah.
president's campaign because they would have needed to build that sort of closeness in order to function effectively. Because sometimes you need to say the president is not around, but he literally just left his room, just to protect someone from coming in, or so a
Yeah.
delegation wants to meet him. They call you first and say, "We want to meet the SRC president. How do we go about it?" And then you have to then say, "Okay, let me get back to you." But then you go back and say, "Oh, what do I need to do?" Then you also need to manage the interest of parliament and all of that. But I think in KNUST, it gets very real. It gets very real very quickly as well because the interests are so, I wouldn't say misaligned, but the interests are very diverse.
Yeah.
Where even the PR has its own interest or reason for coming into the office. And
Yeah.
and for our administration, it wasn't any easier when you have Focus FM and our very own Boachi also giving you hits every single Sunday on issues that needs
Yeah.
to be handled. So I think for me, it was a very steep learning curve. Like I said, maybe I was a bit naive coming into that position because I was just in second year. I was able to convince people I could do the job. Did I do the job very well? I think I did to the best of my abilities. I think time will judge the various chief of staffs and they will see where they place all of us.
Yeah.
But one important thing was I always relied on the help of my predecessor. So the first thing I did was to contact Ahabain,
Yeah.
Derek, and then I
Yeah.
think I also contacted Danish chief of staff.
Okay.
I contacted SAC's chief of staff, and then I asked them how they handle certain things, and they were really, really, really like helpful, especially Ahabai, like who was much more closer. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. I wanted to ask something about the structure of the KNUST administration because I know in real life, for instance, we don't elect PRO, we don't elect secretary to the administration. You just elect the president. Even the vice is, yeah, you just elect the president. Everything
Mhm.
is appointed. So the president has a lot more control over who forms that administration. and they're able to limit certain external interests, maybe to a significant degree. In KNUST and in student politics, you don't control who comes into the other positions, especially on the executive council. So, like you said, the PRO can be coming in with their own ideas, their own agenda, exactly what they want to run. The secretary same, the financial
Mhm.
secretary same, and the president has their own ideas. And these ideas, to the best of their knowledge, are founded on things that they genuinely want to do, but also promises that they've made to the people to get them elected. How does such a body reconcile all these promises from different people to function to deliver, especially when you have conflicting perspectives on issues?
So one thing you need to always know is who is the president? Who is the president plays a major role in the question you just asked. Because
Okay.
if the president is unable to identify the interests that people are bringing into the office, then
Yeah.
that president is bound to fail in administration.
Okay.
Because, and if we take our minds back, I don't know how things run these days, but when we were there,
Yeah.
you could get a whole different faction running the secretary agenda
Yeah.
and a whole different faction running the president's agenda.
Yeah.
And these two factions ordinarily do not sit face to face to talk. They are not, they are opposing
Yeah.
factions.
Yeah.
And they will elect a secretary into office and the other faction will elect a president, sometimes vice versa.
Exactly.
So you would have to then understand what they are looking for. So there were times where we knew the secretary was looking for X, the
Yeah.
financial secretary wanted Y, the vice president wanted something else in the administration. Okay,
Yeah.
how do we balance it all out? So, and it gets even trickier because the parliamentarians are also elected into parliament. The
Also
speaker is
including some
appointed from their coalition. They are
yeah.
coming with their own different agenda. And also the chief of staff is now being put in the middle and saying, okay, guys, you
Yeah.
need to run these things through the chief of staff. But then the guy who I just walked from Conti to say business school to go and campaign cares nothing about who this
Yeah.
chief of staff was because he came
Yeah.
into office on his own merit. It wasn't a campaign
Yeah.
that got him. It wasn't your campaign as a president that got him there.
Yeah.
So you always need to find out what they are looking. And if you can't get what they are looking for, and start giving it to them, or start finding like the middle ground, then that's
Yeah.
when you hear of all the cracks in administration. What person X is running this, person Y is running that, and interestingly, as people start, you get caught up in all manner of things.
Yeah.
Sometimes you are doing more damage control than like actually planning for the administration because people are
Yeah.
firing things left, right, center, and it gets to you. So in the KNUST situation, it's a very tricky situation. But we've seen successful presidents run it, right?
Yeah.
They managed to bring everybody together. Like I'm saying, so it depends on who is really in charge and how you're able to bring the electable people into office. So the five, the president, secretary, vice, treasurer, and I think women's commissioner. Those five
Yeah.
are elected. Everyone else is not. So you need to know now, get them to sort of like a round table and know how who your inner circle is and who your inner circle is not, and how you want to go about all of that, which is what I think plays up in most of these administrations that we see in KNUST.
A final question on this stretch is, would you prefer to have an administration which runs like the national one? A president selected, the president appoints every other office within that administration. Because I know people make the case that the way in which the student body is structured is also for balance of power and accountability purposes, so that the president does not have undue influence over everyone else. But if that is also going to cripple the progress of the administration and make a lot of time to be and apportion a lot of time to be spent on discovering and settling interests as
Mhm.
opposed to actually executing things that would help the student population. Would you think that the risk of overly empowering the president is much less than the inefficiencies that exist within the current system?
I think you need to look at it from this angle. Within the KNUST system, what powers does the president have?
Okay.
Are they powers that are so like entrenched that there's nothing you can do about it? The answer is
Yeah.
to an extent yes, and to an
Yeah.
extent no. You don't go to council meetings. That's for the president to go
Yeah.
on to the council meeting.
Yeah.
Conventionally in KNUST, we've chosen to make the GRASAC president be the second student rep at council, but it's not a constitutional thing. It's a
Oh,
convention
okay.
that was adopted. So
Okay.
you will never get to the council meeting. You don't go to academic board meetings unless he's asked you to represent him there. Conventionally,
Yeah.
we left it for the vice president as well to go for academic board meetings during my time. So
Okay.
there are certain things that will never get done until the signature of the president is appended to it. And you have to ask
Oh.
yourself, what are the major things that we even do as student leaders in the school in the first
Yeah.
place that will
Yeah.
require so much power to be able to like say, oh, the
Do
president
that.
has so much power? There's not that
Yeah.
many. You when we had some issues with administration, one of the lecturers pulled me aside and said, the longest time you guys ever spent on campus is 6 years. That is if you are doing
Yeah.
medicine or anything like that.
Yeah.
I have been here for the last 20 years. I'm going to be here probably another 20 years. And then you'll
Yeah.
be gone. I see so many of you coming and go. It is not your ideas that run the university, unfortunately. There is
Yeah.
an administration running the university. Within the
Interesting.
VC span of 4+2, the VC will see 6 different students coming to the
And
council
go.
and
Yeah.
go, but that council will still remain the council. So you ask yourself, what is really the president there to do as an SRC president? You are not really
Okay.
there to necessarily become like how do I put it? You are not an Akufuado. The powers are very
Right.
different. Your powers
Yeah.
are limited to an extent. The extent to which that you are bound to council decisions, and most of the time you are
Yeah.
bound to fall in line with where the direction or the vision the council is traveling on. You just become
Yeah.
a part of it. So, regardless of the system we adopt, nobody's ever going to empower the president to become so powerful that he
Yeah.
can go out of
Yeah.
control. Because
Okay.
regardless, the people in JHAPA building are the ones going to approve your your budget.
Your
It doesn't work
budget.
any
Yeah.
other way. No matter how powerful you think
Yeah.
you get, you don't spend your money.
Yeah.
It's money being
Yeah.
controlled from a certain finance directorate, right?
Yeah.
So all of these things need to be taken into account. Should we change it? I think we should because it creates more disruptions than actually a
Yeah.
unifying
System.
administration and a system. Look at the situation of the local NUCS president, for instance.
Yeah.
These guys also become so powerful in administration that depending on who the local NUCS president, they can cost your presidency or not. You
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
So we need, yeah, I think if there are calls to look at the way we appoint people into office, I'll say certainly yes. There are certain portfolios that I still think I don't even know why people still run for those portfolios anymore. I feel like it's we can move past it. I don't want to call out portfolios, but some of
Call it.
them,
Call it. Call it.
that I don't think they even go any way to like change anything or shift anything in anyone's
Yeah.
direction. So
Yeah. That's interesting as well because it's like you sit behind and a lot of students will look onto the SRC president and place a lot of responsibility on them in their heads and say
mm,
these people are so powerful, these people are the ones making this decision. And if you just describe it the way in which you did, they are just equally a pin maybe at the corner, whereas there's a whole chessboard being played and they are not even on the main stage of the board actually being controlled. They are probably at the edge of it, representing students' interest. But then it also begs a question: if they are that limited in terms of power, how effective is their student advocacy really in terms of like council, academic board? How much influence do they have to be able to shift certain decisions when things are not going in students' favor?
oh yeah, the in fact you hold power. So you hold power, but at the same time you don't hold the power. Let me put it this way. You
Yeah.
don't hold the power in instances where you can't set the agenda for the university. You
Okay.
can set the agenda for the students, but
Okay.
ultimately your power is your ability to get the vice chancellor, get the dean of
Oh,
students, get the other stakeholders to
to listen.
understand your advocacy and then
Yeah.
help you like implement those things on behalf of the students. So
Okay.
your power is as limited as can you walk into the visa and say Charlie how far?
Okay.
You get it?
Okay.
Because
Okay.
if you don't develop the relationship with the VC, that moves whoever is in power to attend to the things that you campaigned on, then your administration
Yeah.
will fall. And so
Yeah.
you being in office has much to do with your ability to be very reasonable and develop a strong working relationship with those who are in power than not.
Yeah.
So that's why you see some SRC president leave office for about 4 or 5 years. They still come back to campus, and these professors hold them in high
Yeah.
esteem, like in a very high
Yeah.
regard. There are some vice presidents who leave office and are like,
Unfortunately.
finally, you know.
Yeah.
So, and we see some of them leave office and they get awarded by Utum for at graduation.
Yeah.
And we see some of them leave office and don't get their certificates.
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
So, but then there's the same like personalities involved in all these SRC administrations, the same
Yeah.
VCs, the same dean of
Yeah.
students. So you ask yourself, why is it different from one president to another? It's because
Yeah.
your power and your ability to advocate for the students is is as important as, or it is hinged on your ability to strike the best working relationship you can with the,
Okay.
whoever is in charge as a vice chancellor, whoever is in charge as a dean of students, whoever sits in the finance or accounts office, all those key
Yeah.
people who move things for the registrar, is how you're able
Yeah.
to build those conversations around them, and then that's all. If you don't do it, then please, there's nothing you will do in the school that will go anywhere, because at the end of the day, there's you that just actually you're a student, and that's what that's
Yeah.
something we forget. You're a student. You are waiting
Yeah.
for them to award you the degree. They still hold you.
Exactly. They'll still mark your
Yeah,
papers.
yeah, exactly.
So
So
yeah.
you can't come and walk with shoulders high and say, "Oh, yeah, I'm the SRC president." They can just tell you go sit at home. You're suspended for 2 years. You're not going to school. There's nothing you can do about it.
That's true. Interesting. It's such a conflicting way to view the power of the student leadership. And it's quite interesting because I think lots of people view it through one lens.
Mhm.
Maybe the school administration itself is viewing it through one lens. Students are also viewing it through another lens. We view the SRC president as almighty, all powerful. If something is not done, to boy, they are the reason why everything is breaking loose. So we should get them to fix it. But let's move on to the second phase of student leadership, which I got to experience personally with you in the KNUST Debate Society. That's when you became officially my Mr. President. The SRC credit. To be fair, I didn't even know anything about SRC or SRC leadership or who was there and who wasn't there. So up until we interacted in KDS, and I think on the trip to Tanzania, it was then when someone's, oh yeah, this is Kelly, SRC chief of staff. And even at that time, it was mainly like there's an SRC chief of staff sitting somewhere who came to join us to go to KDS function. It wasn't like a KDS member who was SRC chief of staff who has come to. So there was really not knowing you within that period. But you
Yeah.
eventually became KDS president. What was your experience with that? Why did you come back to be KDS president? Because somebody would say, SRC chief of staff, you are done. You've managed the most sophisticated KNUST politics, but you returned to come do KDS and become KNUST Society president. So what was the inspiration? What decision calculations were you making when you decided to take that step?
It's not as cryptic as you're making it seem, but but then I mean, my interest in debate
Yeah,
started, I think, really much in Presec. So I
okay.
always look back and I thank Eric. So like anytime I'm around, I try
Yeah,
to meet up with Eric and say, can I see you? I'm around, like, because I appreciate the work of the gentleman so much. Because but for him,
yeah.
I wouldn't have even joined KNUST Debate Society. So it goes back to Presec. I was debate president in Presec too. Um, and I
Oh,
think it's quite interesting because the Presec debate presidents have, I think, within a certain period, were also leading other debate societies across like the
yeah.
country, and we didn't plan it, by the way. It wasn't something that it just actually hits me now that
We
I'm
don't, we don't believe you people, so don't try. If,
yeah.
whether you plan it or we don't believe you people, you put they can plan it and say it's been planned.
Oh, it's not that deep. And I think when I got into KNUST, I didn't want to join the debate society actually. So before I came,
Why?
I spoke with Eric, and Eric was always interested in which
Yeah,
university I was going to. I think he always wanted me to go to University of Ghana for obvious reasons. We had worked
yeah,
very closely in Presec together with Prince and Jessica, and he thought if I was in University of Ghana at the time, it was going to help, especially with Presec. Like
yeah.
he needed somebody who will still be in Presec to help him with the student and the secondary school debates and everything that we were doing. So when I got to KNUS, he said, "Oh, if you're going to KNUS, that's still fine. Then we're all one big happy family." So he gave me JJ's number and then Telfast's number.
Yeah.
He said I should text them when I get to campus and I should go and join the debate society. But I didn't. I go to campus, I was like, actually, I'm about university, I'm coming to Alpha. I'm going to do my own things and just like move around. But then there was this evening that we do the RP baffle,
Yeah,
and the halls take charge of the training. So there's a
yeah.
guy called Timothy. I'm a woman, Samek. Maybe you know him or you don't know him, but yeah, he was in
I don't know
KDS
him.
as well. But at the time, he was
Okay.
running for Indies vice president. So
Oh,
he was
okay.
going around and asking people, anybody who wants to debate or anything like that. And I think he went to my room and he said,
Yeah.
"Oh, there's a debater here from Presec. He's very good, but he's not here. Maybe you should look for him. He can help you with the debate thing." So when I went there, I went back to my room. They said, "Oh, Eric came to look for
Yeah.
you. Sorry, Timothy came to look for you."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I spoke with Timothy. He said, "I need your help with the editorial board as well." So I was actually writing for the English editorial board too in first year.
Oh,
So that's where my whole
okay.
writing and all of that thing began. So I was, and that's how he plugged me into the whole writing things for people's campaigns and all of that in KNUST. Um, and then my my journey really started from there. So they did a tryout. They have this indies debate competition they do before RP Bafo. I've forgotten the name they have for it,
Oh,
but there's always an indies debate. So I
yeah.
won that one. And I think judging the finals was Telfa, it was Belinda, it was Ida.
Okay.
And then I think that day Ascobic came around. I don't even know what he was doing on campus that day. But that's the first time I remember seeing Ascobic. There were Tintin was around,
Yeah.
but I had met Tintin in Presec with BNI.
Okay.
When they did the first Accra Open, they passed by
Yeah.
Presec to have a like conversation with us. So that's the first time I met BNI and Tintin. So when I saw Tintin again and I saw all of this, I was like, I mean, I might as well just consider it. So I did the whole in this thing. We did RP Balfour. I got to quarters and I was knocked out. Um, so I didn't even make
Oh,
semis of RP Balfour. So people don't remember seeing me at RP Balfour. And then I joined. So we came for the finals, and the finals was
yeah.
Balfour and Michael Lampa from Katanga, then
Yeah.
Percy and Samuel from Kunti. And I don't remember the rest. All due respect, but I don't remember the rest of the people in the final.
Hey,
but
hey,
but then
hey.
so when I saw
Whoever
them
it is,
speak,
please.
I was like, so I saw Balfour speak. That was the first time I've seen Balfour the whole
Yeah.
tournament. And whenever I bring
Yeah.
it up, he says, "Yeah, but you were so shitty that you never go to the top room." So that's why they never met me. uh, well, apparently I was rolling in the bin room somewhere. Um, so surprisingly, everybody was looking out for me because I had done BP before, but I didn't even.
Ah,
I think I got to the knockout as
this
fourth.
thing happens a lot, eh?
Yeah,
It's like people who have high expectations on them at RP Buffer because they've done BP before tend to suffer the quarterfinal case. I think
mm,
similar thing happened to Boso as well,
yeah,
where he dropped out in quarterfinals.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because you carry like I don't know who Boso spoke with, but the person I spoke with was new to the whole debate thing, not even to say BP, like the entire debate thing. So I was out of argument and I couldn't think on the spot and I made very weak argument.
Yeah.
I think Tintin was the judge that day. He put my sense and said, "Charlie, like your arguments could have been much better. There was a high expectation for you, blah blah blah, and all of that." So that's when I met Bafa in the finals, and then we literally hit off. And I said, "Oh, this guy, the way he speaks, I think he'll compliment me because I'm not the most dramatic speaker, but Bafo." so,
Just Ocha, you are setting him up for absolutely no reason.
so we partnered and we did some of the first few debates together, which was really, really good. So
Yeah.
in my first year, and I think this is where I suffered a bit in my KDS journey because I was
Yeah.
always weighing, okay, debate tournament, internship, which one should I go for?
Oh,
So in my
okay.
first year, they did TTC. Um,
Yeah.
and I know Bashi was furious because he was expecting me to do all the three. I told Bashi I wasn't coming. I
Yeah.
was going to do just one. And the reason I was going to do just one
Yeah.
was because I had gotten a chance to intern at Barclays, then Barclays, like
Yeah.
APSA, at their head office
Yeah.
at Accra, the one by that Mills, I think, highway.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to let it go for debate.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I might as well do this. So I came back to Kumasi. And I think at that point, it was interpreted as he's not serious enough. That's
Ah.
what I believe. I don't know how they thought of it, but that's the vibe I got from the
It
people
got to
around
be
me.
test case.
Yeah. So they said he's not serious enough about this. He's not as passionate as we thought he was. And
Yeah.
so we did the last bit of TTs because there were three tournaments in one at Kumasi, and then we
Yeah.
camped for Buddha. I didn't particularly enjoy the Buddha camp only because I felt
Yeah.
as though I had a target on my back. And I didn't
Ah,
understand why I
okay.
had a target on because for me, I was just here to do the debating and go. But like I was telling you, I think
Yeah.
sometimes our expectations of going into something versus what people expect us to use the space for is not the same. And when it's not the same, our behaviors will be
Yeah.
conflicting. And so because of that, you wouldn't really get to appreciate when I act in a particular way, when you act in a particular way, because you're not looking at it from the same angle. You're not even looking at the same goal with the same particular activity. But eventually
Yeah.
I got back to partner me at GUDC. So I did GUDC in Sunyane. We
Okay.
got to the quarterfinal. I think we broke 8 in that tournament. We got to the quarterfinals, only for me and Bafor to fight in a room. And then, yeah, because we were working, right? And I think
Fight.
we were closing. I think I was the, I forgotten the party reason, but depending on the motion, I could close or I could
Yeah.
start, whatever. And I think I
Yeah.
almost closed because Bafor was a very good at the antics and the rebuttal and everything. So, so,
You are shading off of how the way you've been dressing him down
oh no,
since
but
you started this journey thing.
Bafor is a
Me,
good speaker in his own category. He's done his
me, I would
best.
have said Malfoy is passionate too, but you said antics and drama.
Oh, I didn't say drama. I said
Your
antics.
choice of words, your choice of words is the trouble here, because you said he's dramatic. You said he does antics. I like peace. I would have said he's passionate.
Bafor is
But
very
for you,
passionate.
I'm the one saying
He's a
passionate.
very passionate
Don't steal
person.
my words. Don't steal the words. Stick to your antics.
But
Let's
yeah.
move on.
So when we had that round, he argued, we compared
Yeah.
the arguments as teams would always do. And then I said, no, that's not what the debate is about. He said, no, this is what the debate is about. And I said, no, that's not what the debate is about. I've forgotten the emotion. And it got us into a little bit of a heated like argument between the two of us. So he got
Yeah.
up, he went to argue his lines. I was like, no, that's not what the debate is about. So when I got up with my egos, I also said, let's try and shape this debate to where it's supposed to be. And I also debated from his argument. Like it was that bad. Listen, it was terrible. It was so terrible
You know
that
what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Boso and Vincent. So we're doing, I think, a pants camp, and then Boso, Boso with his radical thinking,
yeah.
he came to run a very extreme case about how the entirety of humanity deserves to be blown up. And then Vincent was his whip. He was expecting Vincent to come and defend the case. Vincent was speaking. Vincent never touched on Boso's case. So Boso actually wrote on a sheet of paper and came and said, Charlie, explain the case. Vincent looked at the sheet and said, no, no.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of even like team partnerships on the like in debate tournaments.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we didn't even talk for like a few hours after that. Like we just got up because we knew we had lost. We knew we had
wow.
blown the tournament. So we just
Yeah,
left. We didn't make the semis. In fact, I think if we had agreed a bit more, we could have probably made the semis because
yeah,
Solomon and Jeremiah made semis that tournament. Percy and Michael Lampa made semis that tournament. I think we were in pole position to make semis that tournament if we had
yeah,
managed to sort of manage that difference. But yeah, GDC
yeah.
went well. I did public speaking that GDC too, and in the semis, I think I was riding on a high. Only to go and mess up terribly at the finals with some stupid speech that I made. So
Oh,
I ended up being fit best speaker. But when we came back in second year,
yeah,
and as you know, KDS started going through its own little turmoil with leadership, right? And I think some of
yeah,
us automatically, by the way we like who we had played with, got ourselves
yeah.
aligned in one type, like one
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 side.
side, and then
Yeah,
other people got themselves in another place. And when I had started looking at, I was like, this debate's cramming the heading. Why did I even start this in the first place? So I decided to focus more on running Kelvin's campaign than even attending
yeah.
debates meetings. So if you realize the whole of second year, that is when you guys came in.
Uh,
You guys didn't see anything of
yeah.
me.
I never knew.
Yeah, but the first time I saw it was actually at your RP Bafo. I judged one of your public
Really?
speaking. Yes. You were wearing some African print with blue and some other thing in it.
Yeah, I
So
remember that African,
yeah.
and I'm sure that speech was terrible.
you're much it's okay.
Say what you want to say. This is not okay.
You're much no, you look younger. Let me
Loud.
put it that way. I mean we've all grown, we've all changed. So let me just politically correct.
I understand this thing that you said.
But yeah, and
Oh my.
And I think it was on you talked about I forgot what the topic was, but I still remember access of the speech because it was so moving. I was judging with I think it was with Akoshi or one person. I was like, this guy is good. I really like his speech. And I think you spoke about your mom and dad and some of the struggles you. I don't know whether it was real or not, but it sounded very
Yeah.
real, like the way you put it. And then you said,
If I spoke about my mom and dad, then it was real.
yeah, because I think it was about one person passing away and the other person depending on also
Yeah,
something
yeah,
of
yeah.
that. And I think it was so moving. I was like, I don't know if this is real, but this guy has a very good. I don't know where he ended up in the tournament either way, but
I don't remember because I didn't like public
public
speaking
speaking,
for
yeah.
much
But then
in my
that's the
institution.
first time I
So
actually saw you, and I didn't come. I so I was in there the first semester with you guys RP Balfour. I trained Africa
yeah.
in that RP Balfour, so I trained Joanna,
Oh,
I trained Diana,
yeah.
and I forgotten who else came from Africa that year. But it was myself and
That's
Isinam who were training the Africa
oh, okay.
contingent. So
Okay.
we trained Africa. I came around for RP for a bit. I stayed for the final or something, and I think I just left. And you guys didn't see much of me until when we had won the election, and then the SRC
Yeah.
administration came to being. And I think we're going for PANS in Tanzania, and
Yeah.
there were some funding issues. So the team approached Kelvin. I think it was Isinam or Boachi or JJ. One of them approached Kelvin. I don't remember who, but Kelvin called me and said, the debaters want this from us. What do you think? And I said, oh, but this is not a big deal. We are both from the society. Kelvin was also a KDS member. We might not be going there right now, but I think if we can, we should. And at the time,
Yeah.
Kelvin wanted to go for the tournament too, actually. So this is when we had just come back from the demonstration, bro.
Yeah.
We both needed a place to cool down. So
Yeah.
it looked like a perfect vacation
Just take a break.
to just take a break from everything that was happening, run away.
Yeah.
But I, I think we couldn't take Kelvin because of the numbers. And so eventually
Yeah.
Kelvin had to sacrifice his spot for one of the other guys who won this. And to be fair, we don't even know who he went to because we just went as a
Yeah.
team. And that's how you saw
Yeah.
me coming on board and so I just started joining your training sessions like some of the days
Yeah.
leading up to the trip to adjudicate and all of that. And so that's how come I came in because the adjudication would have been the easiest thing for me to do at that tournament since I had missed out on a whole year
Yeah.
of training. I had lost a little bit of interest in the running of the debate society at that point. And so I just came back to adjudicate. And I think I didn't expect to win best adjudicator in that tournament, to be fair. But it just so happened that, I was enjoying it really well. I was enjoying it really well. And I think my love for debates was coming back in that competitive sense. So even when we came back, I remember calling you and saying, Charlie, it looks like right now you are the superstar of the team. Can you please teach me debates? I want to come back into the society.
That thing there. Who me? Hey,
Oh, but do you remember?
yeah, I
Yeah.
remember. And that's what I'm saying. I'm like, you best adjudicator in Africa telling me that me, Mo, I'm superstar. But yeah, I think it was that point I actually got to know you, like in terms of being involved in debate. I think from there on, I obviously expected you be around the debate space, but what I didn't expect was for you to be interested in the leadership of the society, right? So, like you pushing up to become debate society president was a bit of a surprise because it wasn't part of the things I was expecting. And to be fair, I didn't know who I was expecting to become debate society president at the time. I think it was your election with Isaac Greer, right? Yes. So at the time, it was Isaac Greer whose side, because myself, Isaac, Bannerman, Prosper, Ralph, Boso,
What was the name of your group
were
again?
this NRA,
Uh-huh.
NRA, were this group of troublesome KDS kids who just wanted to create our own caucus and further our own agenda. And so that year, we said Isaac for president. End
Mhm.
of story. Full stop. And then obviously it turned out that the constitution barred him from running, but it was a bit, it took me aback because I was like, okay, if I'm expecting anybody from the other side to want to be president, maybe I was expecting those who are like at every single competition all over the place. So that's why I was asking, what was the motivation then to from rediscovering the passion for debate to wanting to be at the helm of it and then run the affairs?
Yeah, I think you need to look at it this way. Not every excellent footballer becomes an excellent football coach. And
That's true.
Arsene Wenger was not the greatest footballer, but he
Yeah,
became one of the most excellent football coaches. Same you can talk about Mourinho.
yeah,
For me, the motivation was not to come back and win tournaments. Like that was never the
yeah,
motivation for me because I knew I didn't want it. And that's me being very honest. Uh, why did I come? Why did I become interested in the presidency? So if we go back and look at what was happening in KDS at that time, a group of
yeah,
people say they want a constitution, well defined. They want a presidency. They don't want anybody to say I'm
yeah,
leaving and I'm handing over power to the next person.
yeah,
And people drafted a constitution. But at the
yeah,
time, there were personalities involved that people felt, okay, well, this person seems to be having too much control over a certain group of people. These people also seem to be
yeah,
having a mind of their own. And they also get labeled and tagged into another group of people.
yeah,
And where you stand is really dependent on who you hang out with, to be fair. Not what you believe. There was who you were seen hanging around with determine where we put you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that also determines the perspective of stories you
You
hear.
exactly. Yeah.
So,
So like you
yeah,
see people walking. So when I heard that well the constitution was coming up, people were going to go out for elections and all of that. I had a conversation with Balfour, I had a conversation with Isinam, with
yeah,
Ida, with some of the seniors who were like about to leave. And then they said Michael is not interested in running the society, which I was surprised by, to be fair. I thought Michael Ampao would want to be people
yeah.
president.
I was also very
Yeah.
surprised because Michael has been interested in both debate and politics as well. Because I knew him from Bielsa
Yeah,
and
exactly.
student
Yeah.
politics.
Afiba
Mm,
didn't want to be president. Balfour said
yeah,
he didn't want it. He was going into his final year, law student. He just wants to focus on Makola and all of that. So
yeah.
they were like, do you think you can run the society? So then again, it wasn't something I went for. It was something that was sort of brought to my attention that,
Oh,
do you think you can run the
yeah,
society? We know, we think we have what it takes to be able to run the society. You've been chief of staff. You understand how things work to an extent. You've been debate president from Persec. Do you want it?
yeah,
And I was like, I don't think I'll win because these guys don't even know me. And it will be a hard sell for these guys to see all of a sudden turn your eye around, like turn your eyes around and look at this guy. Where is he coming from? Why is he going to be the
yeah,
best debate president ever? I needed to convince people. So immediately I had to divide the society into three groups of people. The people who
yeah,
I started like targeting the message around people, right? So I would say, for instance, Andrew is a serial debater. When I say serial debater, these are the people who we were signed up for debate training from like 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
yeah,
They are there. That's what they want.
yeah,
Magdalene couldn't care less about like how
yeah,
long you trained. Um, People like Buff or Jonah will show up for the tournament, but like me, they would
yeah,
normally choose an internship over
yeah.
coming to the debate or like Della. So I realized that the society was not one big.
It wasn't
It wasn't
uniform.
uniform. People had their own interest,
Yeah,
right? And I think I was able to quickly get to that from my experience of being the chief of staff because I could clearly see what people's interests were for joining a group. So I joined
yeah,
and I started speaking to people targeted, very, very targeted. So I would go to the first year. So I'll try to understand who is the big boy. I think those days was Brain was really the main guy among the first years.
yeah,
And I'll try and get him to, and I'll try to get Balfour, who I think everybody liked and adored and admired the
yeah,
society, like everybody's nice guy, to see who I needed to go and speak to. So that's what happened. Then I ended up going on a post because eventually they put a clause in the constitution that barred second years from running for the presidency. I had nothing to do with it. If you are going to ask me that, I didn't see it. In fact, the first time I saw it was I was working with Balfour. This was like a week to the
yeah,
election. And I was like, can I read the constitution
yeah,
again? It was very random. And then I saw the constitution. I said, Balfour, have you seen this aspect of the constitution? He said, which aspect? I said, like the candidacy, like who qualifies to run. And he said,
yeah,
what do you mean? I said, have you read that you have to be in the site for 2 full years before you can run? I think that
yeah,
was a clause or something. And he said, genuinely, he
yeah,
had not seen it. Today, I don't know who inserted it. I don't know like how it got there, but that was the ratified version of the constitution that was used for the election.
yeah,
So I said, but why is Isaac still running? And then he said,
yeah,
he might not have seen it. I'm like, oh, but how can you tell me you've not seen it and you're running for president? And he said, well, I don't know, but well, you just run your campaign. So I think at that point I knew that, oh, at this point I was going to win the election. What I needed to do was to now
yeah,
start getting everybody to come together, right?
yeah,
And I think one thing that did help me was Percy stood in for me because every vacation, if you realize, I was never around. Also because
Yeah.
of my parents, because I have to always travel and come. They always want me to come and see them during vacation. So obviously, I have to leave and come every single vacation. I was doing that. So that's why you never saw me at any open. You never saw me at any institutional
Yeah.
tournament. And yet, some way, somehow,
Yeah.
this guy is the president of the society and he's not at any
Yeah.
major tournament except Pans and World. Because those are the only ones that falls into the time that I'm around school. So that's how it really went on. And I tried to make amends by bringing you guys into the running of the administration because I realized that there was so much division heading into the election. There was so much misinformation,
NRA was hurt.
and
We were
no,
heartbroken.
NRA was not united because we managed to find ways to come into NRA, and that's what.
No, but anyway, NRA, I don't think NRA was not united. NRA was united in terms of the goal. NRA started fracturing when we faced challenges and we had to resolve it.
Mm,
So when Isaac's issue came up, the point of disagreement was how do we respond as opposed to did we support Isaac?
I see what you mean.
Right. Yeah, so that was where the fractions came in terms of really, and I don't blame anyone because everyone believed in what we felt was the right response to the issue. Someone felt one form of response was to just express solidarity with him regardless. Another was the best form of response is to respect the interest of the society and look out more for that instead of just picking the person and his interest and making him feel better. And both of them have their merits and demerits.
Mm,
Obviously, it's about friendship also. So there was no clear cut answer, but that's really when the struggles came in. But prior to that, NRA was actually very, very uniform. But that's also the thing about all groups. When everything is going well, everyone is fine. Once there's a challenge, then the head starts spinning around.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I was. I think KDS is a beautiful institution. You
Yeah.
don't need to look far, but to look at the alumni, for lack of a better word, and see what they are doing, and
Yeah.
then just tell yourself that, oh, okay, these guys were doing something like something good. Because today you go on
Yeah.
LinkedIn and you see people you know. Like sometimes I follow like Ghana politics quite a lot, and you see some of your seniors on TV and political campaigns. You're like, oh, it be this
Yeah.
guy. So yeah, so I think it's great, and for me it was. I think it was the best one of the best moments in my university life being KDS
Yeah.
president. Not that it was easy and all fun,
Yeah.
with the world's list and your election as well, um, you
Yes,
know,
those are important too.
and all of those things.
So,
But I think in all, I matured. Like every step, I
yeah,
became like a better thinker, a better decision maker as a result of the things that were
yeah.
happening there.
Just a quick one. How much time do you have?
Oh, we can talk.
Because you've done 50
We can talk.
minutes.
Yeah,
It looks like this is going to go on for like 2 hours.
we
So,
can talk.
okay, let's do an icebreaker with two more
Okay.
questions and then we can continue from there. First question is, when was the last time you changed your mind about something life changing?
You see, I don't remember the last time because I like to think I'm a very intentional person.
Yeah,
So if I'm changing my mind on something, it means I had either totally got it wrong or I've just lost interest. And then that
yeah,
hasn't really happened yet. So I don't
yeah.
think, yeah, I can point to one particular instance. Yeah.
Okay. And the next question, what is the belief that you hold that most people disagree with you on?
Oh, that you just have to get your own shit done. Nobody's coming to help you. Like, no matter how you look at it, see, it's like that Lumber song, you know, Sirikwa. Like,
Yeah, no.
you are important
Yeah,
because they can get something from you. Just get on with it.
yeah,
Do it for yourself, and if you can
yeah.
help them. But don't ever think that
Okay.
you are the nicest or the loveliest person. That's why they are coming to you. Like just
Oh,
just. And I think it's a harsh way of looking at things, but people don't always receive it well. But then hey, like you know, just get on with your own stuff.
there's a last bit of KNUST SRC stuff, which we'll come to when we talk about the protest. But let's put the KDS stuff to bed first. There are two defining moments, or let me say, if you ask lots of people about moments that they would remember vividly about Kelly's presidency administration. There were lots of positives, really. For me, for instance, I felt you were one of the most, especially for the first president after the constitution has come to full force. You were very intentional about operating within the framework of the constitution. You were a lot more diplomatic, and just by personality, you were a lot more calm. I'm a little bit,
Mm.
maybe now I'm calm, but at the time I was a little bit aggressive than I am now. Um, but and so there were two things then that I want us to talk about. First, let's talk about that world's list, because KNUST Debate Society has been known to be very political when it comes to lists for institutional competitions. That is like, if there's, before elections came, and I'm not even sure till date, elections is probably a lot more political than the lists, but the list was the height of politics in the KNUST Debate Society. And that's obviously because there are lots of good debaters around, but the opportunities are limited. And so
Mm.
always leadership has to make a decision. Some people have to feel disappointed. I know for one, Bannerman, he's probably the person who would like to catch people and squeeze them, because he's felt let down several times when it comes to who doesn't get on the list for these competitions. But the reason why yours is interesting and a bit different was because you took an unconventional route to say, look, there's been the back politics, it's annoying. You know what, everyone assemble. And it was out of the blue too. It's not like it was on an
Mm.
agenda that anybody saw coming. Just was there. President came and said, you know what, guys, everybody round up. We are voting for who is attending Worlds. Submit your names and then cast votes.
Yeah.
It's like, now you are pitching everyone against everyone at the same time, being very open about the process. So nobody could scream and say, why is my name not on the list? Right? How
Yeah.
did it get there? How did it get there? Because for me, it was like one political master stroke in terms of settling the noise about lists. I'm not sure anyone from that point on said the list was unfair or could blame you for any outcome
No.
on the list, because the society decided, and you resorted to the society and said, we've decided, end of story, let's move on.
Yeah. I think coming into like office, right? One thing I wanted to do was to make sure that we we leave the society better than we found it. Or I
Yeah,
left the society better than I found it. And that was in every aspect of running the society. Whether it was how we structured our finances, whether it was how we went to world, whether it was about how we elected executives. And so I think I came into at a very interesting time as well. We're running Pounds was going on at the same time.
yeah,
Yes, and director was still in charge of debate
yeah.
at the time. Uncle Kofi had not emerged as
So you had not
not
come
yet.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So the list was always being run across. When I went, and I think maybe it was my some of the moves I did, benefit of hindsight, I would do it in a different way this time.
yeah,
But I approached some of our senior members. I mean, I approached Boache.
yeah,
Let me just put it out. And then I told Boache, I'm thinking of the Wall Slates. I respect you so much. Can we do it together?
yeah,
And then Boache gave me his opinion, but I didn't use
yeah.
it. so
Okay,
I so I just went and I said, okay, this is what Boache thinks about the Wall Slates. Let me also go and let me see what I can do for the Wall Slates. Clear, obviously, and it will be a lie if any KDS president tells you they don't have an interest in who they want to attend Worlds with
yeah,
or not.
yeah,
Like people have their favorites in their mind, right? You could be the best,
yeah,
but it's about who I think really should go. So I have
yeah,
some people in mind that I thought, why not? They've been in society for all these years. They've done this. They could go. These guys probably have like 2 or 3 more years. They'll be fine. There'll be another world. It will not be my problem to deal with.
yeah,
But by the end of the day, as blunt as I have just put it now, I also didn't see the resistance coming from the
ah,
administrative angle at all. And I didn't even realize the number of hands that were passing my back end,
bro,
also submitting their own list. So I'm not going to mention the names, but there was a
yeah,
day I went to the sports director's office. I enter, and then he says, the list you submitted, I need you to go back and change it. It is not gender affirmative or something. He gives a certain statement. It needs to have women representation on it. And I didn't understand it. Only to find out later that someone we all very well know between me and you had gone there to tell him that VC was not going to accept the list because if he submitted a different list that didn't have a female on it, VC was going to kick against it, and he will make sure that it gets there because he knows this person, knows that person.
Yeah.
So director was like giving me vibes. I'm like, I don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
Not knowing that other people had also gone to the office without my knowledge of it, obviously, and gone to ask themselves why director has said that they were not supposed to be on the list. So, like, director, you said I don't merit you. I heard I'm not supposed to be on the list. Tell me why you think I'm not just trying to be on the list, and let me show you why I should be on the list. And all of this was going on to the extent that even the last list I wrote for director, I submitted it to him at Pajo because we're having some things going on there. And then he looked at the list. He told me, he shook his head. He said, "Come back to my office on Monday."
Wow.
And the list kept going back and forth. And the more it went on, the more it created a rift and a division between people who are on, especially myself and Boache.
Yeah.
Because I knew Boache had particular individuals he wanted to take to Worlds that I didn't think should go to Worlds yet. And that was where some of the disagreement started from. And also, unfortunately for me, I had become very friendly with some of the people that I wanted to go for Worlds. So they were saying that I was pitching a family and friends list. And that I wanted
that's always the
person.
risk. It's like,
Yes.
even when you genuinely believe that these people deserve to go, people see the friendship first before they see the
Before,
competition.
so a casualty to all of this is Bafo.
Yeah.
Bafo became the number one casualty on my side. I don't know who became casualty on other people's sides, but for him, I think he got targeted, particularly because of a relationship with Percy and a relationship with me. So people felt he's benefiting too much from this, and maybe there's a way we can. Because if you remember that day, Bafo was going to go to Worlds until somebody raised up their hand and said, "This is not what the Worlds list is supposed to look like. You said it's supposed to be X number of females. Why is Bafo going?"
Exactly.
And when they did the whole thing, I was like, "Bro, I'm really sorry. Like, I
See,
have
like,
to choose the society's stability
yeah.
because trust me, if I had bulldozed my list, my Worlds list, the way I wanted to do it, and we had gone for Worlds and come back, if there was
The
any
society
catastrophe
would
at Worlds, it would have been on me, right?"
Yeah.
So I had to find a way. So I think I called my executives out of the meeting that day because that day, if you realize, the meeting was very tense. There was a lot of rumors going on, like Kelly is being difficult. He doesn't want me to go for us. Like,
That's the thing, because it was so out of the blue and it was so instant that within the meeting there were caucuses and there were small pieces of information being sprayed around. And so
exactly.
it's like there's no room to verify, and everything is happening in time.
No,
in
and the
real
thing
time.
is, even if you verify, people won't believe your verification because
Yeah.
you are not their friend and they don't even talk to you like that. So yeah, he's doing it for, and as political as KDS is, everything is seen through the lens of interest before the lens of objectivity.
I don't know. I have a feeling every president has that one person who suffers because they are close to them.
I
Every
guess. I
president
mean,
has their own. Yeah.
yeah, but it was a very instant. I called Della and Jennifer, and then I called who was my vice? Prosper. How could I forget?
Yeah.
Yeah, I called Prosper, and then I said, "Guys, I think this is what I'm going to do with the list, and I think it's the most objective thing to do.
Yeah.
Trust me, I knew in my head that the gamble I was taking, I was going to win. Like, I wouldn't have taken it if I thought I was going to lose. I thought the list would play out the way I wanted it to play
You
out.
wanted to play out.
Because prior to that time, everybody who I had put on the list was somebody who had either showed up or had won internals or had won a major trophy or an accolade or a medal at the
Justified
previous
themselves.
tournament.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a justifiable list because for me, and let me tell you who my original list was. My original list was Boachi and Erasmus.
Okay.
There was no way they were going to make, like, it wouldn't make sense for you to
omit them. Like
they were
everybody would
past
see
champions.
you are just going to get into trouble for doing it.
Exactly. Like, it wouldn't make sense to anybody. Objectively, morally, it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Then the second list was going to be Bafo. So as to who gets to pair with Bafo, I couldn't care. Whether it could be Percy, it could be Akosia, it could be anyone. I didn't really have a problem with who was going to speak with Bafo. When it came to the education list, I had 3 people in mind, myself, Joanna, and Akosia.
Yeah.
So it also wasn't going to be much of fun because Joanna had just won Best New Adjudicator.
Yeah.
And I was coming with Boachi and Erasmus as like pounds
Yeah.
winners. So I
Pounds,
knew
pounds
that these
agent.
4 people will be on the list. Now the problem is who gets to go with Bafo.
Yeah.
And that's where everything started from. So on the one list I put Percy there, the list got rejected.
Yeah.
Another list I put Sasu there, the list got rejected.
Yeah.
On another list I put someone else there. And I think in all of this list, the other lists that were being submitted had you, had Bannerman, had Michael Lampa, and other people out there. That I was like, okay, I don't know where this is going, but yeah, so we decided to take that decision together. So I called them out first, build a consensus,
Yeah.
obviously. And I came back in and I said, this is what we're going to do. And I was really confident that Buff was going to make the list. See, if I knew he wasn't going, I would have found a different way, but I think he was going to make the list that day. So we voted, and obviously, to the surprise of many people, I getting 2 votes and 1 vote, and they thought that everybody loved him, but nobody really loved him.
Someone got one boot and walked out.
And I
Hey,
think,
it means
and I
you
think for
voted for
me,
yourself.
that was a moment of stability in the society. It sort of
Yeah.
died, like it calmed down most of the noise and the
It did
conspiracy
actually.
theories and everything because
Did.
it was as open as fair as it could be. I gave the choice to you guys, and you guys returned the choice with the people you said you wanted to go towards. I had nothing to do with it from there. Case closed. Let's run the society.
After
Let's
that,
prepare for
was
Thomas.
that final list fought over?
No, never, never again. Never.
Okay.
The next morning, before I could talk to the director, when I got the director said, I've already heard you took the list to the society and they voted upon it, so I accept it. And I said,
Wow.
okay. And I don't know who got to the director before I got to the office, but
Obviously, you know who got to director before you got to the office. Okay.
but yeah, so I mean, but these things are interesting, right? And I think when we go to Thailand, Bachana had a conversation one day and he said, we all want the interest of the society. We all want the society to move forward. Um, the way we might do it would differ, but the
Yeah.
interest is the same.
Yeah.
And I think from there onwards, like things started looking a bit more relaxed amongst people. We stopped being aggressive. We were just chilling. Like people were just being themselves. And I think it helped solidify our pans. I really love the pans moment in the one we hosted because that was
Yeah.
the first time I was actually connecting with people in the society, like one on one. Like I would, after every round, I would ask people how their rounds were. I would talk to them.
Yeah.
I was a very rusty speaker by then, so the only help I could offer was in adjudication. So I was going around asking adjudicators how it went and what I could do to help out. I wasn't going to bother to come and ask you how Andrews went because there's no advice I can give you that you wouldn't know. So, and I
They
think
said
that tournament,
you left us to hang dry. Now
that
I
tournament
know.
went. I think that tournament went really well. I
Yeah.
don't know if you realize, but I cried when we won, and even when we
Yeah.
came back to
Yeah.
the hotel and I got everybody
Yeah.
in the room and I was talking to you guys, I was very, very emotional because it was the first time that I was beginning to see like where the society could actually go, like
Yeah.
what this society could really become. It wasn't just going to be a fan club, but this society could
Yeah.
actually now start giving off like exceptional human beings in the future to run the country. Like I could see it in that moment when we had won the pants and like all of us like, oh, this thing is bigger than me. And I hope that whoever comes after me is able to keep it like going in that direction.
Yeah. I mean, that nice segue to the next question about the KDS election when you were president. Obviously, that election had myself contesting, Prosper contesting.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'll put it out there. I was a stubborn person in the election. So nobody should come and ask me what was it. Because I obviously, at the time, I think earlier in the year, when the administration, the lab called me out I think there was an issue about the election about who was eligible to vote, and I was adjudicator in chief at the time. And the lab openly implied at a what do you call it?
We
Wait,
call it
friends
General
and
Assembly, right? Those days,
General
yeah.
Assembly, yes. At a General Assembly meeting that because I had ambitions to run for president, I was going to be biased in determining that issue when it comes to me.
Mm,
And that pissed me off because it was more like, first, I hadn't even thought about it. And I hadn't even thought about sitting on the issue to begin with. So even if I was going to be there, to the point where his issue was, even if I was going to set people up to discuss that issue and bring up a decision, I
mm-hmm.
was still going to manipulate and influence the people to come up with a ruling that favors. And how do I do that so far away from election without even knowing who the hell would sign up for the election and vote? So for me, that pissed me off. And you were there. I got up, blasted my way out of the room. The next day, I sent in my resignation. I said I won't do it again. Didn't get.
Yeah.
I won't run for it again.
No, I remember. I mean, um,
And I know you stonewalled me for a very long time with the resignation because you said you won't accept it. Up until at some point, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing. I'm not changing my mind. I'm not doing it again. So you just take your resignation. Take the resignation and let me go away. Um, I think for that resignation, for instance, what confirmed for me was when you appointed an alternative AIC. That's when
mm,
I knew, okay, now finally Kelly has accepted the resignation. Because for a very long time, I wasn't sure, am I still resigned or I'm not resigned? What
mm,
exactly is happening? But yeah, the election came around. Were you shocked when you heard I was running?
no, no, I wasn't shocked.
Even after all the I won't run, the tantrums and the rants.
Oh, I want to run there. You see, you had run for a department presidency before, right?
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think we had me and you had got caught up previously in alternative camps, also at the college
yeah,
level.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So I knew that it was the voice of a politician at the time. Like that's what he's saying. Well, I don't know if he's actually going to do it, but I can't really look at this guy and think he won't do it. So
yeah,
and see, I didn't have any issue with you becoming president. I think we always look back and then things were said,
yeah,
um, a lot of messages were passed around, but it was more. I think that the issues were created in the unfolding of the sequence of events and how they
yeah.
unfolded. I think that's what
It's just
created
crazy.
the whole thing because
Yeah,
I came into always knowing that there was a lot of suspicion around me. Like the
okay.
acceptability was not, even though everybody who turned up to vote that day voted for me except one.
Yeah,
And I can remember only because there's just one person who said no. Everybody said yes. Um, I was still not seen as the insider, like the debates guy. Like
yeah,
I was not seen as the guy who had anybody's interest. I was there for my own
yeah,
interest, and that's why I met a lot of resistance in lots of things. But in all of that, I try to always make sure that we are not doing things to disrupt the run of the society. So
yeah,
I appointed a lot of you guys into my office. Like I was running
yeah,
things with you. I think RP Buffer was run by Isaac that year.
yeah.
Um, you were
It was
adjudicator
run
in
by
chief,
our people was run mainly by Prosper, if I'm not
and I think
mistaken.
no, Isaac was technical head. No,
Was
Buffer was
Isaac
technical
tech?
head. No,
Yeah,
Isaac
Buffer was
wasn't.
technical.
Yeah, Buffer was technical head.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
Isaac was
remember.
technical head for
Yeah.
me instead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So no, but I remember me reaching out to Isaac to come and help with RP Buffer because I didn't want to isolate him.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So and after doing setting up all of this, because one other thing was also that I didn't want anybody to feel like they were matched. If you realize one thing I really was particular about the society was let everybody feel comfortable. This person doesn't want
Yeah,
to win a trophy. Andrews wants to win a trophy. That's his business. Like this guy just
yeah,
wants a society where he can be happy. Can we create a
yeah.
society where everybody comes in and they are comfortable? Like
That's their
people,
interest.
they
Yeah,
are just getting their interest out of it. So there were debate meetings that you know that you come and we'll not debate. We'll sit and
yeah,
discuss issues and we'll discuss to an extent. I was even discussing internship opportunities and things like
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah, yeah.
within team meetings, right? So when you got up that day, and some of the things I could say that some people speak out of observation and history.
Yeah,
So, like I'm saying, the history between me and you prior to that moment was a lot of akoyokra, what to say,
yeah.
like with
Yeah,
yeah, him and Odeko, because obviously the whole CSAP
yeah.
thing had become very, very like
That also
nasty.
messed a lot of things up.
Yeah, so and when both of us were coming out of that whole CSAP thing,
Yeah.
we never spoke about it, but I
No.
knew that mentally
Even
you were
to
thinking
this day,
about it. I thought about it too.
we've never spoken about it.
Yeah. So I think when you got up and you said, and that day to me to an extent, I didn't even know why you were so worked up, like you were shouting and you
It
were.
pissed me off really. Like it pissed me off. There are very few times I remember being pissed off to that degree, and
That's one of them.
Because Dela knew what he was doing, and that's the thing. Dela knows. It's not like he was too serious. He knows that what he was doing, he was on the lines of joking and not joking, and
Mm,
he knows that the implications it would have. People will not see the jovial side of it, right? But he knew, and
that
I
was it. Yeah,
knew.
you. Mm,
Yes, and I knew. But the implication in people's minds would not be that he was joking. So I knew the damage he was creating, and that's what pissed me off. That you know you are joking, but you at the same time know it's hurting me, and you are still just blowing through it as if you don't care.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, not that I'm speaking for him, but I don't think he cared. By the way.
The guy is like that. I mean, later on we eventually caught up, spoke about it and all that, but he knew. For me, so for me it was like, and to be honest, a part of me was shocked at my own reaction, but I was
Mm,
pissed. So after I reacted, I was like, hey, I won't do it again. It's okay.
yeah, but I think the difficulty those moments created was even when someone was objective and they seemed rational, it was never met with the same rationality on the other side. It was
Yeah.
always as though, no, there's an agenda. He's not
Yeah.
being himself. He's
Yeah.
not being truthful, right? Because you worked out as educator in chief and you said you are not running. You even said you're leaving the society or something. You took a break. You didn't come for like 2 meetings and later you came back again.
Oh, leaving the society there, no. The
Then,
society I wasn't going to leave.
so
So
you're
the
just
extreme I went was I won't run again and I'm leaving, I'm resigning. So that was it.
because you I think you skipped like a meeting or two,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that one
then
there
and
was
then
for me to cool down.
and then you
Just
came back,
do
and
my own
eventually
speed.
you're like, I want to run. I'm like, the guy wants to run. There's nothing we can do about it. He should run. Let him run, right? So
Yeah,
so I started running. I'm not going to sit here and say I supported you over Prosper. No, I supported my vice
yeah,
president.
yeah, that one there.
so so
Yeah,
I
I won't be. I would actually be shocked if you didn't support him,
mm,
right? So if at the time if I was sitting down and calculating which people can I count on, I'll be naive to come and say Kelly is going to support me over Prosper because bro, they're in the same administration. I'm the same person who's going to run my campaign on bashing the
bashing the
administration
administration. Yeah.
because Prosper is coming from there. So there's no way. It doesn't even make political sense for me to assume that just by virtue of you having to defend your impact on KDS, you would, even if you didn't intend to, you would appear to lean on the side.
Yeah, no, no, clearly, and I didn't even have to say it; it was implied, like you said.
Yeah,
So, well, we put things together. I didn't. Nobody saw COVID coming,
yeah,
so we had to even vote online, and the whole
yeah.
proxy voting issue happened, and somebody called them to say they should give them their logins to vote, and somebody said they had not heard it before, so they were upset. They said we have rigged the election for Prosper, and
Rigged,
all of
rigged the
that.
election.
You
The
know,
election.
there's no, but one thing I was like, who rigs an election to tie it? Like,
Yeah,
what?
but that's also the thing. For me, it was more like initially, if you ask Bar for the initial conversation we had about it, I hadn't decided to make a big issue out of it. I was actually
Mm,
exploring what was wrong with what he did.
mm,
So I found out what he did. Initially, I just went to Barford to complain. So it was more like a rant. And so Barford's initial advice was like, let it go, don't mind him and all that, and just prep for your like run up. And I was like, ah. I went to read the constitution. I was like, nah, this thing can make
mm.
a big issue out of it. So now let's start creating chaos. And then started the trouble really about. So I remember Bafo called me several times and said, Andrew's Jai. Stop it.
No, but I mean, see, those you look back and those moments where as chaotic as it seemed, there are
Yeah,
moments that teach us a lot and we learn so much from it. And you look back and you're like, not that you're happy it happened, but you are just grateful
yeah,
that you've lived through certain experiences because
yeah,
the craziest ones among them was Abenes over like dramatic
yeah,
results over 10, and the way people portray themselves post
yeah.
to the extent
The
of like
election.
saying I
Yeah,
should appear and come and defend myself and like which president is someone whilst he's still a president. Like nobody does that to a president. But I guess I had to do that because like I'm saying, the suspicion had been there from the first day I took office.
yeah,
And people thought I was there not to serve anybody's interest but my friend's interest. And I didn't care enough about debate, and I didn't really. I'll put everything else above debate, which to an extent is not true.
yeah.
But I guess I saw it more like running a society rather than running a debate team. I think that's the
But
mentality I brought into it.
you know something too. I know when I was running, the notion was that oh, because it was like
But you had a
everybody.
decider in my camp. Well done.
But that was like a secondary matter. That was it, it wasn't even needed again because it was when the runoff was coming,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually the court case and the whole proxy voting thing came up. So it was like wasn't really eventually useful. But prior to the first election, prior to the first voting, it was like the notion out there was I had Boache, Rasmus,
Yeah,
JJ, all the big guys who were in Accra
because I had
behind
pissed them
me.
off too. I don't know if I pissed them off, but I don't know. I don't know if like, but I woke up one day. I decided to create chaos and just tell everybody to go and sit somewhere. So I don't know. Honestly, hmm, I
So people
yeah.
said they were behind me, and then obviously the other comparative was you and the current administration behind Prosper, and so it was like they viewed us as pawns in a chess game as opposed to
Mm.
people who had their own interest and were running for the society. But it will probably shock you, up until the first election where I tied, none of them came to my aid. And the reason is all of them said I'll lose.
Oh, really?
All of them. See, I called Duke Sasu and told him, Duke, I want to run for. Duke said, Andrews, I would vote for you, but you lose. Because clearly, at the start of the year, I wasn't campaigning. I had said I'm not running. And Prosper was vice president. Prosper has done a lot of work. Prosper had also made his intentions clear. And so,
Very
for
early on,
anyone who
yeah.
was voting for me, it was because they had a unique personal relationship with me rather than, yeah, I'm voting for you because I think you'd win. And so that was their notions right from the start. B and I told me the same thing. I'm not even voting, but you lose because
Mm.
you've not run your campaign properly. Erasmus, same. JJ, same. It was the night when the election results came out and it was a tie. And then they realized I could actually win. That's when they said, okay, now we'll help you.
Yeah, I think you know, and it's funny you put it that way because um, you you thinking or they thinking you would not win is I'm hearing that the first time and I'm surprised
Yeah. They thought
because
I
it was
was,
the other way around for
obviously, I
me.
didn't believe it. I didn't believe them, but they thought I was winning. So
Because
that's the
I told
reason
Prosper
for
he
which they're
wouldn't win.
running.
I told Prosper he had blown. I think you came in late, but Prosper had
Yeah.
felt he had
It was
the he
comfortable.
was comfortable, and I think that's what he suffered from. So getting close to the election date, I actually told Prosper I think Andrew is going to win. Yeah, you can. If I don't know if you guys talk, but if you talk to Prosper, you can ask him like
Yeah.
and he'll confirm. I didn't think he was going to win. The day you guys were running the election, I was on the
Yeah.
campus with Solomon at University of
Yeah.
Ghana. And I was telling him the same. He was asking me, I was like, oh, I think Andrew is going to win. And he was like, oh, really? I was like, yeah, but Prosper was like, yeah, but he's my vice, but he's not been able to consolidate his base like that. So,
Yeah.
and at the time, I was becoming very unpopular to an extent.
Yeah.
Especially after the whole me dissolving the group chat and removing people and telling people not to come into our space and all of that. So
I think
anybody
Michael
who
Lampa had
sees
also challenged you a few times on the WhatsApp
Mike
page.
Lampard challenging me a lot on those
Yeah.
things, like why did I think I had the ability to do that?
Yeah.
And I think for me, not that I hated them, but it was just more there was a lot of opinions. There are lots of opinions in KDS.
For me,
To an
to
extent
be
at
very
some
honest,
point.
I don't oppose the decision to take them off and
Mhm.
separate them because I think it was necessary at the time. And a lot of young people who come into the space was like they were intimidated by the presence of the old guards on the page. And it's not
Mhm.
just the presence, even for people who showed any iota of expression, the kind of corrective force they were faced with. It's like they were not allowed to make mistakes to learn. So you hear things like, this is how you are thinking and you are in debate. Hey, who brought this child here? Hey, get him out. Like, and it felt like people the impact it was having on people were adverse. Because typically, I think maybe in the past, it made people a lot stronger to go and do better and come back. Maybe the
Mhm.
likes of Abba who wanted to drag an argument along will go and do heavy research and come and defend their side. But the kids that were coming up were also people who would just withdraw and hold back and not be expressive anymore. And
Mhm.
so it was right to do that. Obviously, you can also never predict anyone's reaction. So the backlash there it came along.
But the backlash was really, really strong that
Yeah.
day. and I remember Ampa was fuming, you were fuming,
Mhm.
Banaman was fuming, people were typing essays on the page. You know, I turned off my phone, I went to sleep. I was like, I've done it. You can
You
do
say
whatever
you
you
turn
want.
off my phone. Hey,
Oh yeah. I couldn't be bothered because I also did it, and that's the thing with, I guess, the leadership that I had, or like I exhibited in KDS. There were lots of spontaneity, like a lot of
yeah,
spontaneous reactions that nobody saw coming, that nobody could
yeah,
predict, and
yeah.
and
That's
and they
one thing
were.
that makes you very, I don't know, I don't want to say brutal, but a little bit scary as a president. Because it's like, people are like, oh, I can calculate this person's interest and probably measure the decision they are
Mm,
going to take. A lot of it didn't apply to you because you could just go rogue and do the thing that you wanted to do in a spur of a moment and nobody saw it coming. And it wasn't that you won't get the same outcome, it's that you won't do it the way in which anyone expected. So maybe people would say, oh, Kelly would consult and maybe raise it at General Assembly meeting for us to consider whether we should.
mm.
Now, got up, sacked everybody and dissolved the page.
Yeah, but I think, if anything at all, I think I also helped empower the next, like, presidents after me to see that,
Yeah,
see, you are here, you're in charge. If you choose to do things the right way, you get your things done. If you don't do it the right way, you face the backlash. I
yeah.
didn't expect your election to run into, like, it took longer to
Yes.
call the results. Yeah, it was, and it became so divisive at some point that there are people
Yeah.
who till today I haven't spoken to. They haven't spoken to me. I don't know if it's
Wow.
because of the election, but
Yeah.
the only point I can go back in history is we used to be very cool prior to the election.
So the
After the
election.
election, I
Yeah.
haven't heard from you again. And it's sad, right? Because these are people
Yeah.
that, like, you build relationships with. So I wasn't expecting the relationship to become, like, so divisive,
Yeah.
and to even go. I don't know if, like, it carried on, the effects carried on for years, or it didn't. But
I think
ideally, yeah.
it was better after the election. And a lot of it boiled down really to the appointments.
Mm,
Like you said, you try to appoint people to appease everyone, to bring everyone into the fold. And there were people that I would swear during the campaign, if you asked me whether I would ever appoint them into my car, I said that bita. Never in my life. Never in my life. But you can imagine I had to trade off Ralph for Brain, and Ralph doesn't forgive me till today because obviously Brain was on Prosper's side, and
mm.
Ralph always tells me the only association he's ever joined and never had an appointment was KDS, and I'm responsible for it. So he's pissed at me for it. He was pissed at me for it for a very long time. Clinton, who dragged me on the page for God knows how long. Clinton was more or less my chief of staff with KDS,
That's surprising.
right? And
Uh,
exactly. So some of the tough calls where the Charlie was like, swallow your pride and work with. And the goal was just to try and unify everyone. The only person who I would say I didn't give an appointment was Prosper. But majority of the
mm,
people who were strong pillars in his fold were drawn into the administration as well. That's also because the only person I really exclusively appointed was Isaac Diaz, technical head. The rest of
yeah.
it was really debated at the executive meetings. So
Mm,
it was more like an executive decision to appoint people as opposed to a personal one to
yeah.
appoint people. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, just to say, I enjoyed my experience at KDS. No matter how unconventional it might have been, it was a wonderful period of my life. Yeah. If I would, you ask me, would I go back and do it? I would probably say
Yeah.
yes. Because KDS is a wonderful place to be. If it's a privilege actually to even become president of KDS, knowing
Yeah.
how talented and special all these people are, and then you having to be the one to
Yeah.
decide on their behalf for them and all of that. It's amazing, and you
Yeah.
see what people are doing today post, like, KDS, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh wow, like, this is really impressive. Like, the future looks very
Ella,
exciting.
Nash, Prosper, Bannerman, Ralph, Isaac. Like you look at Brain, Vincent,
Mhm.
Chog, Dinah, Joanna. You look at a lot of Akosia. Look at like, hey. So if today they bring all those people together in a room, and they ask you, do you think you are worthy of, of being their president? Right. That's how I view it. So I'm like, if they bring all those people in a room today, per their calibers and the things that they are doing, would I still be confident in myself to run for an election in front of them? And I think that puts into perspective the amount of privilege it was,
Yeah.
right, to be leading such groups of people. Anyway, next to, I don't know whether this moment would make you, if I ask you whether you could go back to the, you said if I ask you whether you could go back to KDS, yeah, you go back again. KNUST
Mhm.
SRC, let's come back to it. If I ask you to go back to the protest moment, would you go back to
What do I want to? I won't go back to
it?
it. No,
But
I
there were a lot of stories outside of that period as to what was going on within
there are
the
always so
political
many stories going on, like
movement.
outside administrations, right? Like everybody's saying something.
Yeah. Like, how did you feel? Because you were in second year at the time.
I
Um,
have just started third year, so yeah. I mean,
yeah.
like weeks into my
Politically,
third year.
yeah, true.
Mhm.
Politically, you were also, like you said, mainly learning on the job and finding out a lot about KNUST politics because you entered as an exploratory journey, but you realized that Charlie, things became real so fast. One of the realities was confronting a protest crisis that I'm not sure presidents come across a lot
Mhm.
in the KNUST administration. If I should ask you what your assessment of what happened was or is, how would you assess it? Do you think it was a necessary thing that had to happen? Do you think there were different ways to get that same outcome without having to end up protesting?